If there is anything in this world that I'm totally 100% capable of reviewing is AC/DC. Hello everyone, today I will be ranking every AC/DC studio album. And yeah, I know what you're thinking, like, how can I rank such perfection? Like, how? I kinda created a. I will show you.
2,000 years later.
So I've created a ranking thingy here on this app. Probably know it. It's quite famous. And I have here all AC/DC studio albums by chronological order. And let's start. I know that you're wondering, like, shouldn't all these labels be perfection? Yeah, they should all be perfect, but I'm trying to make this a series. I need to give other bands a chance. So let's start off with High Voltage, and I will open Spotify in case you don't know what songs are in High Voltage, but man, The Jack, Livewire, Long Way to the Top, TNT, Can I Sit Next to You Girl, High Voltage. I mean, I actually picked up the guitar because of this album. Malcolm Young has been and is my, like, total inspiration when it comes to rock and roll guitar playing. And the first time I heard AC/DC when I was like 5 years old was this song right here, TNT. You probably know it, everyone knows it. And since that day, this album has been my top favorite album of all time. So yeah, we start off with a perfect. Next off, Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. Well, this album was actually, at the time, it got much better reviews from critics and stuff. There are some really good songs here, like Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, obviously. Problem Child, Ain't No Fun. This is a really nice song. And also Ride On, which is probably my favorite of the whole album. To me, this is not a perfect, because I think it doesn't feel all the requires when it comes to epic songs, but it's probably a great, like a big great. Next, Let There Be Rock. And yeah, Let There Be Rock indeed. Go Down, Dog Eat Dog, Let There Be Rock, Bad Boy Boogie, Problem Child, Hell Ain't a Bad Place to Be. I mean, it's crazy how a band can do an album with so many hits in it. Nobody can do an album this powerful anymore. So I will give Let There Be Rock a huge, amazing, almost at the perfect. Almost. But talking about perfection, Power Rage, Jesus, this is Rock and Roll Damnation, Down Payment Blues, Gimme a Bullet, Riff Raff, Sin City, What's Next to the Moon, Gone Shooting, Up to My Neck in You, and Kicked in the Teeth. I know these aren't like the most famous, greatest hits, but if you are a rock and roll fan, you probably know and love this album. And for me, this is like their second best album ever. I will try to rank them inside each category. We will put like the better year and the worst inside each category here on the left side. And yeah, talking about Perfection again. Highway to Hell. I don't think there is a commentary required for this one. Um, it's rock and roll. If you go out there on the street and you ask people to name a rock and roll song, chances are they are going to say Highway to Hell by AC/DC. But then Bon Scott died and Brian Johnson came into the picture. Many people thought this would be the end of AC/DC, but actually this album is, I mean, you've heard, you've seen this album, you've heard the songs in this album. You know what this album is capable of doing to anyone. Yeah, Back in Black, one of the top two albums sold in the world. I think is it number one or is it number two? I can never.
2,000 years later.
Well, fuck it. Yes, it is a very famous album, and you know all the songs in it. So yeah, it's perfection. Is it better than Highway to Hell? To me personally, it is, because of, you know, some epic songs in it that I really love, like Shoot to Thrill and Giving the Dog a Bone. But yeah, Rock and Roll and Noise Pollution, also awesome song. But yeah, it's a close call. Next off, For Those About to Rock, also very famous song, For Those About to Rock. It's a bit darker. There are some heavy metal sounds in it, you can argue. But yeah, overall, I think this is a pretty good album. Yeah, a pretty good album. Almost a great album, but I don't think it has the Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap quality. And next off, Flick of the Switch. Yeah, it's AC/DC again. Nothing as darker and stronger as the For Those About to Rock album. And yeah, it's a nice album. It doesn't have many hits, and some of the songs are, you know, it's AC/DC. It has the AC/DC DNA, but it's simply not one of the best. So I will give it a nice. Yeah, we have a diverse situation here. Next off, Fly on the Wall. This is arguably the worst AC/DC album. When I say worse, it's not like a bad album, because it's AC/DC and it still has some major tunes in it, like Stand Up and Sink the Pink. But yeah, just comparing it to other AC/DC albums, I am afraid we have to put this one in the low end of the nice category. And then we go into the 1980s. I mean, we are already in the 1980s, but this is where you start to feel the 1980s kicking in for AC/DC. So Who Made Who and Blow Up Your Video, they're just nice albums. Yeah, it's AC/DC, but it's just AC/DC. It doesn't have that extra flair. Moving on to the 90s with The Razor's Edge. Again, a bit darker, some new sounds, and I think everyone in the planet knows Thunderstruck. but also some really great tunes like Fire Your Guns, Money Talks, Razor's Edge, Mistress for Christmas, my favorite Christmas song of all time, Are You Ready, also epic, recently released in 4K, no, not 4K, but with better quality by AC/DC's YouTube channel. Overall, I think it's not pretty good. It's a bit more, but it's not as great as Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. So yeah. Next off, Ball Breaker, and yeah, I kind of like this one. It has some really good tunes like Hail Caesar. Yeah, Any Roll is also nice. Ball Breaker, obviously. Hard as a Rock, yeah, one of the hits. But overall, it's not perfect. Obviously, it's not amazing. Also, it's probably great or a pretty good album. Um, I think that it can be a great album. Not as great as the Razor's Edge. Definitely not as great as Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. And moving on to the 2000s, Stiff Upper Lip, one of my favorite AC/DC albums of all time. It doesn't have as much recognition and praise from the critics as it should have, but has some really great tunes, and I will put it on the top of the amazing list. Moving on to Black Ice, also epic album, some darker tunes. I used to have this one on my car 24/7 for a long time, because I got it when I was 8 or 9 years old, I don't know, and like on my family car this was rocking, and then when I took my driver's license, this was the one album that was always there. So yeah, I've listened to it a billion times and I love it. It's not perfect, but it's definitely close to perfection. Rock or Bust, A Farewell to Malcolm Young. Yeah, I love Stevie Young. I love AC/DC because AC/DC is a family, and you don't get that much of a family feeling in other bands, other rock and roll bands, because there are always crazy people and crazy stuff happening all the time. And Rock or Bust was when Malcolm already stepped down. No more guitar playing for him, so I was a bit sad when the album came. And you know, this I don't really click with it. I love it, but yeah, I think they could have done I mean, it's AC/DC, of course. Still, it has the AC/DC formula, as I like to call it, but I don't know, maybe it was the fact that I was sad because Malcolm wasn't in it or something. I will put this album in the nice category. Yeah. And finally, Power Up. Yeah. Power Up. You know, 2020, crazy year, and AC/DC came stronger than ever. It's a pretty decent record they got here. Also has some hits. Realize, I think it will be, and also Shot in the Dark, which was the single. Yeah, I mean, it's not perfect, but it's still AC/DC. That's the good thing about AC/DC. With AC/DC, you always know what you're gonna get, and I mean, and you get it. They deliver. You are expecting to hear the world's best rock and roll band, and that's what you have every single time. So yeah, I think overall this is my AC/DC album ranking. Yeah, we got Highway to Hell, Back in Black, Power Age, and High Voltage as Perfect, Let There Be Rock, Black Ice, and Stiffer Upper Lip as Amazing, Ballbreaker, Razor's Edge, and Dirty Deeds as Great. For Those About to Rock and Power Up as Pretty Good, and then Fly on the Wall, Blow Up Your Video, Who Made Who, Rock or Bust, and Flick Off the Switch as Nice. Which band would you like to see next? There are some other really good bands that I enjoy. No band is as good as AC/DC, obviously. This is only my personal opinion, of course. But yeah, there are some other rock and roll bands that are definitely worth it. See you next time, everyone.